Hey everyone, it's Dolly Pop. Today I have something a little different for you guys. So I have this kind of, universe setting thing that I came up with, and I reference it from time to time, but I don't think I've ever really explained what it is. So it's called HYPERPUNK. It's kind of related to sort of like Cyberpunk a little bit, if you know what that is. Basically futuristic. Usually some sort of kind of like a dystopian future is what traditional Cyberpunk is, where corporations, rule everything. There's a new game called Cyberpunk based off of the tabletop RPG Cyberpunk that will be coming out in spring. So I thought that now would be a good time for me to go over kind of what HYPERPUNK is and what makes it different from Cyberpunk. I came up with this concept, which actually my husband came up with the name HYPERPUNK, but I came up with the concept almost a year ago, actually a little tiny bit more than a year ago, last year. I had just rewatched Fifth Element, which is one of my favorite movies, and we were actually in the middle of a Cyberpunk campaign that we were playing, tabletop game, and I started drawing this character, and she had kind of like a sci-fi cyberpunk vibe, but as I started designing her and the world, it started turning into something that was a little bit different than cyberpunk. So I called it HYPERPUNK. Well, my husband called it HYPERPUNK. And it's because it has lots of bright colors. It has lots of kind of like distinctive things that sets it apart from cyberpunk. So in this HYPERPUNK setting that I came up with, it is, in the distant future, hundreds of years in the future. I haven't settled on an exact year, but I'm thinking around 23 to 2400. Humanity has not made contact with aliens. We have not explored space. We are just stuck here on Earth, because we have focused less on exploration and knowledge and more on ourselves and entertainment. So, sometimes I wonder, is this really the way the world's going to go? And it's kind of like a little bit of my way of kind of poking fun at things that all humans, myself included, do. So as I said, it's in the future. Technology has definitely progressed, but technology has progressed for the sake of entertainment and for the sake of convenience more than for the sake of knowledge or helping people. So for example, there are, digital screens everywhere, digital advertisements, stuff like that, holographic advertisements, but you still call someone on a phone if you want to talk to them. There's no teleportation, there's nothing that would actually be helpful to people. It's just things that make things more convenient. A lot of the times I will draw big glowing kind of projector holographic type things in my HYPERPUNK illustrations. I imagine that so if you've ever watched The Expanse, they have this really cool way of doing their their screen technology, like their phones and tablets, where it's just a piece of glass and kind of monochromatic light shines forward from it. So I took a lot of inspiration from The Expanse, for designing those kind of screens that you'll actually see me do later. But I also kind of feel like in my HYPERPUNK universe, nothing kind of works the way it's supposed to. So you'll see a lot of glitching, you'll see a lot of lines and characters and stuff like that. But yeah, so nothing quite works how it's supposed to in HYPERPUNK. The biggest difference between HYPERPUNK and Cyberpunk is kind of the overall mood of it. Cyberpunk usually has kind of, not really a depressing mood, but kind of like a chaotic kind of, slightly depressing kind of mood. For example, the main city in Cyberpunk 2020, which is the RPG, or 2022, I don't know. I'm probably going to get yelled at for that. But yeah, the main city is called Night City. And then, of course, all of the things that have taken inspiration from Cyberpunk have been kind of more gritty. Things are in police states. The corporations are, ruling the world, and they're forcing people into slavery and servitude. And it's your job as a cyberpunk to kind of break the corporations and live your life. Hyperpunk, on the other hand, corporations definitely rule the world, but people are a-okay with that because the more corporations means the more access to entertainment and vanity goods and things like that. So while the world is run by corporations, it is seen in the hyperpunk society as kind of a more positive thing. Now, whether or not it actually is more positive is, of course, up to the viewer. Your everyday person in the world, your everyday hyperpunk, isn't really concerned with corporations. The other big difference is the actual aesthetics that I use. You can see that I am drawing with really bright colors in this speed paint, which, by the way, hi, welcome. It's a speed paint as well. So everything in the future is very bright colors, very much neon, like plastics, neons, glass, less metal, less cement, less concrete than there is in Cyberpunk, more kind of fantastical elements, a new super strong form of plastic that, cannot possibly be recycled and is pretty much thrown away, stuff like that. But the other main difference is kind of like the vanity items. Like I said before, people are really into themselves and their appearance and stuff like that. The hyperpunk setting, I have several different cities and each city kind of has their own aesthetics, but I'm going to get into those later. But yeah, the other really, really big difference is kind of like the general mood, like I said. Instead of it being kind of a more serious tone, it's a more playful tone, as does fit with my artwork. So a hyperpunk might be, fighting the power, but don't forget that they have to tune in for this special video broadcast that they're addicted to. Reality TV is everywhere. Kind of like in our day-to-day right now, it's like reality TV has been replaced by YouTube, so maybe it's replaced by something else in the hyperpunk world. But yeah, so I'm already kind of running out of time here, so I'm going to leave it kind of like that, but I just wanted to introduce you guys to what hyperpunk is. It's my, little universe, my sci-fi universe, and I would definitely like to talk more about it in the future. So if you're interested in that, just drop me a comment. I could talk about it forever, but for now, I will just say thank you for watching and listening to me ramble. And if you like what you see, please consider supporting me on Patreon. The link will be below. Have a great day.